Petty. He delivered the keynote address on that day 100 years ago at the Houston Negro Hospital. George Petty was a lot like Joseph Cullinan. Back when Earl Mayfield was making his run for Senate as an open member of the Ku Klux Klan, George Petty said, "I'll run against him. Let me at him." Crazy campaign. They were in and out of the course, trying to get right in, get names off the ballot, get names on, sounding like 2000 something. Petty lost. But he gained a friend in Joseph Cullinan, who poured a lot of money into his campaign trying to defeat Mayfield. Cullinan asked George Petty, who was an attorney, "Will you read the keynote speech at the dedication of the Houston Negro Hospital?" And George Petty said, "Yes, I'll do it, gladly." That's George Petty there. 100 years ago, just across the lawn, he said, "This institution stands and will stand through the ages. A monument to the memory of an American soldier who served to preserve and perpetuate human liberty without regard to race, creed, or color." June 19th, 1926. There were other people there that day. You like to read body language. You guys can tell me what you see.
You mean mugging somebody.
I mean, it's hot. Maybe it's just irritating because it's hot. She said, "No, that's not it." Somebody, anybody recognize this face? Oscar Holcomb, the mayor of Houston, a businessman, candidate for mayor. Joseph Cullinan invited Oscar Holcomb to the dedication. Oscar Holcomb was on record as having no confidence in the Negro's ability to carry on at the hospital.
It's obvious.
Yeah, you can see it in his face. Clinton Richardson was a beautiful wordsmith, the editor of the newspaper, and he said it was the first time since his election that he had graced the presence of black people with his presence.
Without his
he fought those allegations. He tried to deny those allegations. Paul over here, son of a governor. Halverson, commissioner, Harris County. He's the one who picked the land. And it's an Elgin.
And it's an Elgin, okay.
I believe he was a fire commissioner or something. That was a big deal with buildings and construction back then. You know, you didn't want to build something that was going to burn down, and this was a model. This was a model building. This was state of the art. It wasn't going to burn down. I mean, we still have it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's me holding a photograph of the way that I envisioned my grandfather. I don't know if I talked about 1870 he was born, so he would be 156 years old if he lived.
Wow.
Which is crazy. I can remember the number easily because I take my age, 56, and I had 100. We were born a century apart. The man who raised my mother, who was 65 when she was born, is 100 years older than me. That's my grandmother, Nurse Inez Taylor. She's from Buda, Texas, outside of Austin. Buda. Freedom Colony, as they call them now, Antioch Colony, settled by her great-grandparents after slavery. Her father was John Taylor in the community. She said everybody called him, white and black people called him Mr. Taylor. The official story about how they met 100 years ago this past spring was at Tuskegee. They had a clinic every year, and doctors and nurses would go there. She graduated from Prairie View in 1925. He was a surgeon, well known at the time. They met at Tuskegee. She graduated at age 28, guys, so she was an adult. His first wife died, Bessie. She died in 1920, and so he's a single guy, surgeon, well-known, trying to start his life over. And so the official version was that they met at Tuskegee. After my grandfather died, my grandmother revealed to my mother, that's not exactly how it went. Prairie View had a hospital where she was studying nursing. Dr. Drake had admitting privileges and was doing surgeries up in Prairie View. He thought she had a pretty face. They met in Prairie View. Then she told my mother, if you tell anybody, I will deny it. Their first child, William Jr., they called him DB. Unfortunately, he was born in 1927 and a fellow patent law brought him into the world. But he was stricken with polio at a young age. He's leaning against the wall because he can't stand. And unfortunately, he died of complications at 8 in 1935. So my mother was only 1, and she has no memory of her oldest brother, William Jr. They had 2 more children. That's Uncle George. Dr. George Carey Drake. That's Deborah's father there. He took after our grandfather's legacy and became a physician and worked at Riverside. And then that's my mama.
Oh.
Anybody recognize?
Recognize it.
This is Delana, right out the window there. And that's them walking down the street. But a lot of this is because of my mother. This photograph is because of my grandmother. My grandmother took this photograph, and she made sure to buy the little street photographer photograph. They take your picture, they hand you a card, and send you the picture in the mail. And she has 2 or 3 of these. That's, without her, I don't have that photography in the book. They needed staff for the hospital, so they hired the Prairie View nurse here, Margaret Bright. We mentioned her earlier. She's in the book. I was worried as I started putting the story together that I need to see what she looks like. For reasons that you'll understand when you read the story. I need to see Margaret Bright. She's too important for me not to have a photograph. And so I was scared to death that I was gonna have to publish the story with this main figure and you never see her face. Thankfully, Prairie View had a photograph in their digital archives. And then I realized, oh, she was sitting next to Dr. Thelma Patent Law at the dedication 100 years ago.
Wow.
That's Margaret. That's her. She's just blinking. One of the several series of photos, but she just happened to look down or blink at the moment the camera was taken. But again, December, I'm practically done with the book before I realized I've been looking at her the whole time. Then I went back to my mother's scrapbook. She had Margaret Bright in there too. Here I am worried I'm never going to see this woman, and she's been in our family photo album for a century with her name under it. We didn't know who M.H. Bright was. It was just a name. This is the garden, I believe, behind the hospital at Prairie View in the 1920s. Grandma left that one for us. She didn't tell us what she thought of Margaret Bright, but she left us the photo. Thank you, Grandma. Here's the best. Okay, stay with me here. We're celebrating 100 years. Well, at one point they had to celebrate 50 years of the Houston Negro Hospital, which would have been in 1976.
Yeah.
This photo was published in the Houston Chronicle. Anybody? Nope. Her name is Catherine Royett.
Oh, she was a pediatrician.
She was the first black pediatrician in Houston. Dr. Catherine Royett, 1976. So she's here celebrating the hospital 50th anniversary in 1976. Great story because Catherine's daddy was one of the founders of this hospital. Rupert Rowett, doctor. He was at the dedication. I found him. His back is turned, but I said, ask him. Hairline, cheekbones, glasses, yes, ears. And when I see photographs of all the doctors, he might have been 5 feet tall. Maybe. That's his, I believe that's his wife standing next to him. She has pumps on, and so, yeah, little dude. Gets better. So when I finally realized, oh wow, one of the founders, Catherine's father was a founder, and I realized that he was there at the dedication service, I thought, wow, that's amazing.
Wow.
So, this is December, y'all. December. I've been staring at these photos for 20 years. I'm at my kitchen table, and I said, when was Catherine Roy born? 1923. 1926. 3 years old. Same face. Same, nothing changed. Changed. Somebody told me last night she was 4'11".
She probably was the kid that had her back turned in the picture of all the kids born in the house.
Probably, that was her. She's probably organizing it. I love this photograph because I feel like she's standing there 100 years ago today saying, I'm next. Watch out.
I dare you.
Dr. Catherine Roy. I will be the first black pediatrician in Houston. Just give me a few years to get ready. Determined. Yeah. It's beautiful. There's Miller again. You can start to see a little bit of the height difference. I mean, I look at this stuff. Okay, this is his wife. She's got a pumps. All right, so maybe they were the same height. Catherine didn't stand a chance if his mom and daddy were the same height. What's going on there? She's sitting way in the back. The hat on. Almost like she doesn't even want to be there. Any idea who she is? I'm telling you, I look at this stuff, and these photographs are such high quality. For a while, I thought she was Margaret Bright. I kind of had this thing in my head that, yeah, that's her back there, hiding, being sneaky. But I just stayed with it for the years, over the course of several years, trying to figure out who is this woman with the hat. And then finally, I was on Ancestry.com looking at family photos in the Cullinan family, and I realized that's Mrs. Cullinan. Remember when I told you he left? Hey, honey, look, I know I did all this stuff, forget it already, but I'm leaving, so you gotta go instead. I don't want to. Think about it. It's in memory of her fallen son. Right? You can see the cap there, the victory. Her daughters are back there too. He had 3 sisters. She didn't speak that day, but according to Clifton Richardson in his newspaper account, a little girl handed her a bouquet of flowers at the end of the ceremony, and everybody rose to their feet and gave her a standing ovation. Unfortunately, 5 years later, she died in a car accident. They were together. Mr. Cullinan and his wife were in a car, bus sideswiped, they ran off the road, it was dark, and it rolled. So, during my research, I remember going to Rice and asking them, do they have anything with my grandfather's name on it in the Cullinan collection at Rice University? And they came back and they said, yes, we have one item. It's a letter. It's a letter that my grandfather wrote to Joseph Cullinan. My grandfather was the president of the Harris County Afro-American Medical Association, WMJ MD president. And he wrote to him, you are numbered among those of your race who have placed humanity above race and color and have demonstrated this true spirit of the man of Nazareth. His wife died in 1920. His wife died in 1931. His son died, oldest son died in 1935. His oldest son died in 1920. They both lost their wife, they both lost their oldest son. They both fought for the same thing at the Houston Negro Hospital. Didn't always agree. This isn't a fantasy story. But there were times where my grandfather was pressured among other doctors to pull out. Drake, you gotta stop doing work over there. This isn't for us. And my grandfather resisted. He said, but I could be removing a tumor right now. I could be helping some woman right now. This is my specialty. It's a complicated story, and those themes you can see those themes play out even today. This is the surgery photo. That's my grandfather across the lawn there inside the hospital. This is the top of her head, my grandmother. She did anesthesiology. You sit at the head of the patient, you hold the thing over the face while their doctors are doing it. Another doctor, this is Nurse Gibson. My grandfather worked at the Negro Hospital until the day he died. My mother tells the story, 1948, Saturday morning, August. George was about to head off to college. My mother he was working at a post office that morning. My mother was at a friend's house while my grandparents were at the hospital operating. When they got home, my grandmother got to the house first, went inside to clean up. He followed, went to the kitchen to get something to drink, and he collapsed on the kitchen floor. So my mother gets home, there's a commotion. Doctors from the hospital had run over to the house. My grandmother told my mother, run and get Mrs. Henderson, a nurse down the street. Tell her daddy fainted, and hurry. So my mother ran down the street, got Mrs. Henderson, but it was too late. He spent his entire life trying to build hospitals, trying to save lives. He was probably 78 years old at the time of his death, and so the fact that this hospital is still standing is a tribute to people like him who worked so hard to care for our people with dignity. Most of this we did not know. Articles like this, headlines like this, they called him a civic giant. He wasn't just doing medicine, he was chamber, he was NAACP, that's like another book. And then of course they built Riverside. And you can see, this is a perfect example of why we never saw the front of the hospital after 1961. This was Riverside. When Riverside came down, then we could appreciate the building that is 100 years old. Hallway, we found the bronze plaque that Commissioner Ellis mentioned. We found it the day before the ribbon cutting in February. So it was lost 100 years ago, and it was lost 100 years later. That is the story of the Houston